ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වරට SLT 4G වෙතින් දැන් Pure TV නරඹන්න. ඉදිරියටම ගෙන යන SLT 4G.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, guarding against an outbreak, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructs to formulate a scientific mechanism to prevent COVID-19 from entering Sri Lanka. Long arm of the law. Arrest warrants issued over suspects in the bond scam, including former Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayaka. Dangers of modern technology. Former Supreme Court Justice lambasts lack of child supervision and adequate sex education.
Most children come to court in the magistrate's court. Their faults have pornography on it, and that is scary child pornography.
Bridging gender gap. What can the closing of gender gap do?
Closing this gender gap would yield exponential results.
Australian High Commissioner meanwhile praises Sri Lanka for its corporate gender equality drive.
Sri Lanka is going to be held up as a case study for the world.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Friday the 6th of March 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
හැටනමයි අනුහතට SMS කර රුපියල් මිලියන 3ක මුල්තැන්ගේ උපකරණ දිනාගෙන අවුරුද්දෙම කුස්සිය ටයිම් සේව් කරගන්න.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanayaka. Let's start with your local stories. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed members of the Special Task Force set up to monitor and discuss preventive measures against COVID-19 in Sri Lanka to formulate a scientific mechanism to prevent the virus from entering the country. The move comes as the risk of the deadly virus spreading across the world continues to intensify, with the global number of COVID-19 cases breaching 100,000. The virus has already spread across 93 countries.
The 8-month-old infant admitted to the Badulla hospital with symptoms of COVID-19 has tested negative for the virus. Upon confirmation of test results, the infant was discharged today. In the meantime, it was confirmed that another infant of 11 months admitted to the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital on Wednesday with COVID-19 symptoms has been transferred to the Infectious Disease Hospital in Angoda. The infant had recently arrived in the country from Italy and was admitted with a fever. With the reach of COVID-19 increasing across the globe, the risk of infections being recorded on Sri Lankan soil is also on the up. With the risk in mind, the government took measures to screen and quarantine passengers arriving from South Korea, Italy and Iran for 14 days. For this purpose, it decided to transform the leprosy hospital in Handala to a quarantine facility. But all are not happy with the decision as protests over the move continues for a third day today, demanding that the facility be located in a more remote area. Meanwhile, in another move to curb a possible outbreak of the virus in Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Education today stated that students and other individuals involved in educational activities who are returning from countries affected by COVID-19 will be subjected to a 14-day quarantine. Accordingly, the ministry has instructed all the heads of schools and other educational institutions to inform relevant students, academics and non-academic staff who are arriving in Sri Lanka from countries hit by the virus, including China, South Korea and Italy, that they will be quarantined for a mandatory period of 14 days. What's more, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has instructed members of the Special Task Force set up to monitor and discuss preventive measures against COVID-19 in Sri Lanka to formulate a scientific mechanism to prevent the disease entering the country. In a statement, President Gotabaya added that it was the duty of the people arriving from foreign countries to act in a socially responsible manner if they have any symptoms of the virus without concealing it. As at 5:35 p.m. Sri Lankan time, the novel coronavirus spread to 94 countries, recording a global death toll of 3,408 and 100,242 positive cases of infection. Italy confirms the highest death toll outside mainland China with 148 fatalities and also confirmed 3,858 cases of infection. A significant hike in COVID-19 cases in Europe is noticed as fresh cases have been confirmed from various countries across the continent. In the US, meanwhile, 14 overall deaths are reported along with 233 infections. Meanwhile, in Iran, one of the worst affected countries outside China, 124 deaths were reported, with the number of COVID-19 infections also jumping to 4,747. South Korea, meanwhile, might not be leading in the number of COVID-19 fatalities, but the country is in the number of infections. With a total of 6,593 cases confirmed, is only second to China in the number of infections. No Sri Lankan living there is infected with the virus yet. With the number of overnight deaths being 30, COVID-19's grasp on China will and truly looks to be weakening. The country, however, has so far suffered the loss of 3,042 lives owing to the virus, with a staggering 80,559 infections. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, called for a holistic governmental approach from all countries in combating the COVID-19 outbreak.
We are concerned that some countries have either not taken this seriously enough or have decided there is nothing they can do. We are concerned that in some countries the level of political commitment and the actions that demonstrate that commitment do not match the level of the threat we all face. This is not a drill. This is not a time for excuses. This is a time for pulling out all the stops.
I hope that
there are a good number of countries who have left this epidemics up to the Ministry of Health. The Minister of Health and the health emergency institutions. We're saying that's wrong. It needs a whole government approach.
Now, arrest warrants on 10 suspects in the central bank bond scam case, including former Minister of Finance Ravi Karunanayake, were issued today by the Fort Magistrates Court. The case relates to the controversial bond auctions dating back to March in 2016. The warrants were issued after the Criminal Investigation Department recorded statements from the suspects and reported to court following directives of the Attorney General.
The Attorney General instructed the acting IGP to obtain warrants from court for the arrest of 12 suspects, including former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, on charges of conspiracy, criminal misappropriation, cheating and market manipulation in respect of the bond auctions of March 29th to 31st in 2016. The list of suspects include Perpetual Treasuries Limited, Ravi Karunanayake, former CBSL Governor Arjuna Mahendran, PTL owner Arjuna Aloysius, Kasun Palisena, Geoffrey Aloysius, Chittaranjan Hulugalla, Muturaja Surendran, Arjun Punchiheva, Buddhika Sarachandra, S. Padmanabhan and Indika Saman Kumara. With the Criminal Investigations Department requesting the Fort Magistrate to issue warrants against the 12 suspects on last Wednesday, Fort Magistrate Ranga Dasanayake said that the verdict will be delivered today. Accordingly, officials of the CID and the Attorney General's Department were present at the Fort Magistrates Court this morning, during which Magistrate Dasanayake said he needs clarifications on several suspects, namely the 3 members of Perpetual Treasuries Director Board and Buddhika Sarachandra, the 10th suspect of the case. The magistrate also noted his satisfaction over findings with regard to the second suspect of the case, then Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, and the third and fourth suspects PTL owner Arjuna Aloysius and its CEO Kasun Palisena. The magistrate presented Senior Solicitor General Haripriya Jayasundara a questionnaire prepared according to the facts which require explanation, asking her to hand over the questionnaire with explanations to court at 2:30 p.m. Accordingly, the legal proceedings were called again this afternoon to deliver the verdict regarding the arrest warrants. Magistrate Ranga Dasanayake said that it was uncovered that former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake had placed a limit on the productivity rate for bidding at 3 state banks on the 28th and 30th of March in 2016. The magistrate went on to say that facts presented to him showed that by placing such limits, Karunanayake has allowed the first suspect of the case, the Perpetual Treasuries Limited, to make an undue profit and had received a house which goes by the name Grand Monarch as part of his share of the undue profit. Accordingly, the court issued warrants for the arrest of 10 suspects, including former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake, former CBSL Governor Arjuna Mahendran, owner of PTL Arjuna Aloysius and its CEO Kasun Palisena. The magistrate's order, however, stated that since the findings with regard to the 10th suspect, the former director of the Public Debt Department, Buddhika Sarachandra, does not suggest him having links with other suspects, no warrants have been issued against him. It added that since Perpetual Treasuries is a legal entity, a notice will be issued in respect of that entity as well.
Now, the Permanent High Court trial at bar in Colombo today issued an arrest warrant on Pearl K. Veerasinghe, the Secretary of the Presidential Commission appointed to investigate alleged incidents of political victimization. The order was issued over her failure to produce a document relevant to a case being heard before the court.
The judge bench, comprising Justices Vikum Kaluarachi, Dhammika Ganepola and Aditya Patabandige, issued the warrant for police to immediately arrest and produce Secretary of the Presidential Commission appointed to investigate alleged incidents of political victimization, Pearl K. Veerasinghe, before court for ignoring the notice issued by the same court ordering her to appear before it. The court also barred her from leaving the country when the case filed against Samara Puligeni Raj Roshan, alias Ali Roshan, and 7 others over the alleged illegal possession of 5 elephants was taken up for hearing. Based on a complaint filed by the defendants of the case, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe alleged incidents of political victimization had commenced an investigation into this case and had taken the relevant documents into its custody. However, the Permanent High Court trial at bar had issued notice on the Secretary to the Commission to present the documents before the court. The Secretary to the Commission had reportedly failed to appear before court today, while the judge bench deemed this contempt of court and issued a warrant for her arrest.
Now, it was revealed during the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter spate of terror that former Director of the Criminal Investigation Department, Shania Besekara, had instructed the mobile phone of the alleged suicide bomber at Kochikade Shrine to be handed over to a foreign agency for investigations without a court order. The revelation was made by the officer in charge of the special unit at the CID, Lalita Geethanjana, during his testimony before the Presidential Commission.
It was the turn of Director General of the South Asian Regional Unit of the Ministry of Foreign Relations and the former Sri Lankan Ambassador to the Philippines, Aruni Ranaraja, today to testify before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry probing the Easter attacks. During her testimony, Aruni Ranaraja confirmed almost all the facts given by former State Minister Vasantha Senanayake yesterday, which include an event by ASEAN on the 4th August in year 2017. She also admitted to former State Minister of Foreign Relations Vasantha Senanayake having a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Turkey during the event. She confirmed many other facts, including the Turkish minister informing State Minister Senanayake on Fato terror group and Sri Lankan businessmen nourishing the terror outfit, while also agreeing to the Turkish minister handing documents carrying information on the claims. Upon questioning, Ranaraja responded that the relevant documents were forwarded to the Foreign Ministry and to State Minister Vasantha Senanayake, as well as the Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Relations. The officer in charge of the special unit at the Criminal Investigation Department, Lalita Geethanjana, then testified before the Commission. He stated that he was advised by then Director of the Criminal Investigation Department, Shania Besekara, to hand over the mobile phone of the alleged suicide bomber of the St. Anthony Shrine at Kochikade to a foreign agency without a court order.
The Presidential Commission appointed to look into the alleged irregularities and malpractices of the ETI Finance Company convened for the first time today and ordered that the Registrar of Companies be brought before the Commission. During the day's proceedings, Additional Solicitor General Priyantha Navanna, appearing on behalf of the Commission, submitted proposals on how the Commission should proceed over the matter.
The Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to look into the alleged irregularities and malpractices of the ETI Finance Limited convened for the first time today. The commission comprises of retired Judge K.T. Chitrasiri, retired Solicitor General Suhada Gamlat and senior banker D.M. Gunasekara. During the proceedings today, Additional Solicitor General Priyantanavan said that despite the ETI Finance Company Limited being termed as a regulated finance institution by the central bank, it would be necessary to check the grounds on which the central bank made its decision on. He went on to say that during the time that the ETI Finance Limited was disposing its assets, it had sold a Sri Lankan media institution to a foreign institution named Ben Holdings, adding that the Commission must verify whether such a course of action is possible under Sri Lankan law. He then showed that ETI Finance Company had financial liabilities amounting to Rs 23,445 million and 23,362 depositors as of 31st December 2019. The Additional Solicitor General also requested a report to be prepared and presented by any officer of the ETI Finance Company appointed by the Central Bank regarding the 23,362 depositors of the finance company. The Presidential Commission, however, then ordered that the Registrar of Companies be summoned on the 23rd of March.
We will return soon after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, former Supreme Court Judge Shirani Tilakawardhan is very much concerned over how the lack of parental supervision and sex education leads to children being subjected to peer pressure, which in turn leads to children being exploited, especially with the aid of new technologies. Addressing an event titled Countering Technology-Based Violence Against Women worked off to celebrate the International Women's Day 2020, the former justice gave some harrowing examples on how things such as location services on mobile phones contribute to nefarious action.
Information technology, a wonderful thing, but it is also a terrible way in abusing men, women and children. So there's online harassment, cyber stalking, trolling, doxing, name calling, privacy invasions with threats of blackmail, viral rape videos, the distribution of sex videos that force survivors to relive the trauma of sexual assault every time. You know, little children today, 7 and 8, they have little boyfriends. If not you're a loser. You're left out. So they have little boyfriends, and what happens? They hug each other and take a picture or something. Now sometimes the boys and the girls, and I know this because we have lots of cases of boys of 14 raping girls under 12. 250 cases accumulated. You know what the minimum sentence is? 7 years. Can any judge look at a boy of 14 and give him 7 years? So they simply refuse to sentence. The children have become so sexual. One, lack of supervision. Two, nobody is teaching them anything else. Most children who come to courts in the magistrate's court, their phones have pornography on it. And what is scary, child pornography. Because it is what you call grooming them. They are preparing that child because they know who the child is. How do they know who the child is? You have to switch on location on your phone before you can Snapchat, which means everybody on the net surveilling this child knows where the child is, knows who the parents are. Another thing that happens is brothers and sisters. A brother will be told by his friends in the boys' school, now you better get this picture and come, if not you're a loser. So what happens? Sister doesn't know, he's taking pictures and he gives it to his friends. That goes round and round, and suddenly this little girl, the parents are told the child is on a porn website. Sometimes Google tells you your children will never have to watch this porn and all this thing because we have blocked everything that has the word porn on it. And they boast about it. But there is something. Have you seen children do this? Hashtag. When you put the hashtag, you can go into hashtag Instaporn. Go and see because this is what your children are watching. And nobody dates. Swipe left, Tinder. You have a date. So you don't like the person, swipe left again. And there's a huge culture of violence. And now they are saying, you can report the person who did the violence. You can imagine a woman, for for example, X goes out with Y, and the woman gets, he says something very bad to her, or she doesn't like it, and she reports it on the web. He knows where she lives. He knows she lives. What happens? Escalation of the violence against her. So somehow Google and the internet owners don't seem to understand the cycle of violence and what is happening.
Now, Chairman of Asia Securities, Dimut Fernando, believes closing the gender gap would yield exponential results in the country's economy in its drive towards sustainable development, as women in the workforce remain among the least utilized economic and business resources. Fernando adds that with listed companies of the Colombo Stock Exchange welcoming the participation of strong independent women on their boards, the number of women board directors, stands at 9.6%. as at January this year, up from 2019's figure of 8.5%. His remarks came at an event organised at the Colombo Stock Exchange in celebration of International Women's Day 2020, an annual gender initiative conducted by the CSC in partnership with the International Finance Corporation to encourage private sector to expand opportunities for women to promote sustainable development.
The responsibility, I think, of every woman here is not just to mentor other women, but it is actually to educate and inspire men as to why we should all be embracing this, because it takes two to tango and it will take both sides of the gender line. The active participation of women in all levels of business is central to ensuring commercial and community-based development. Studies conducted all around the world continue to support this idea and show direct links between gender-neutral workforces and improved productivity, efficiency, and economic benefit. Women in the workforce remain among the least utilized economic and business resources in this country in particular. Closing this gender gap would yield exponential results.
And even though we appear that we have made progress over the years in terms of empowering women and have them rise to the top, the glass ceiling is still very much intact in certain pockets. In particular, the issue of unconscious bias. This is where well-intentioned men and women sometimes do not represent the true requirements, the overall agenda we're trying to push here, without actually knowing that. And I think that is where education plays a very important role, and that is where we feel active participation from organizations to force that agenda, raise that awareness, will actually play a very, very critical role.
I'm very proud to sort of note some of the progress that we've made when it comes to boards in Sri Lanka. So our analysis on the listed companies on the stock exchange shows that almost 10% of the members of boards are women now. That's up from about 2 years ago where it was close to 8%. So small steps, but all steps in the right direction. It's not the number that's important, but it's the direction that we need to remind ourselves of again and again. And we keep reminding all stakeholders that for the sustainable development that the country needs, you do have to have the entire population participating in that drive for growth. So you cannot leave the women out of it in any way.
I had the great opportunity last night to congratulate 16 of Sri Lanka's large blue chip companies on the work that they are doing at many different levels within their organisations. In this regard, it was work either to be able to ensure better retention of women in work, sometimes being able to clear pathways for women to be able to take up career opportunities that aren't always there, and to give them the strength to feel that they could take those particular opportunities. And in other cases, it was about CSR opportunities to ensure that women in the community feel comfortable and have the opportunities that others have in being able to access things such as finance and insurance and a range of other services that many others may not have been able to get before. What will happen is Sri Lanka, through the IFC network, is going to be held up as a case study for the world. You're going to find corporates all around the world looking at what these 16 blue chip companies here have done and trying to emulate them elsewhere. So the challenge for you is to say, job well done, but what more can be done?
Now, taking a look at the markets, Sri Lankan stocks closed 2.57% lower today, dragged down by Ceylon Tobacco Company, John Keel's Holdings and Sri Lanka Telecom. The SPI closed 141.10 points lower to 5,343.15, and the S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks fell 68.70 points to end at 2,479.61. Market turnover reached 827 million rupees, while 21 stocks gained and 153 fell. Now here's a brief report on today's market performance.
During the week, the ASPA lost 4.5%, mainly due to price losses in counters such as Ceylon Tobacco Company, John Keel's Holdings and Dialog Axiata. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 decreased by 5.8%. The average daily turnover for the week was down from last week to 513 million rupees. Bank sector recorded the highest sector turnover during the week, whilst the second highest was seen in capital goods sector. Furthermore, the foreign participation remained active during the week, with foreigners closing as net sellers, where foreign sellings accounted for 49% of the total weekly turnover. A net foreign outflow of 673 million rupees was recorded for the week. This resulted in the year-to-date net foreign outflow to increase to 4.73 billion rupees. Out of the weekly turnover, crossings accounted for 33%, which was a higher proportion than last week.
We'll see you again after this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has condemned the decision by the International Criminal Court to allow prosecutors to investigate whether war crimes were committed in Afghanistan by US forces after an appeal panel said yesterday the truth-seeking inquiry should go ahead. Pompeo said that the decision is a truly breathtaking action by an unaccountable political institution masquerading as a legal body.
I received word this morning that the ICC Appeals Chamber authorized an investigation into the activities of the Taliban and U.S. and Afghan personnel there. This is a truly breathtaking action by an unaccountable political institution masquerading as a legal body. It is all the more reckless for this ruling to come just days after the United States signed a historic peace deal on Afghanistan, which is the best chance for peace in a generation. Indeed, the Afghan government itself pleaded with the ICC not to take this course. But the ICC politicians had other goals. I'll reiterate one more time. The United States is not a party to the ICC, and we will take all necessary measures to protect our citizens from this renegade, unlawful so-called court. Thank you all. Have a great day. Great weekend, too.
The March Madness has kicked off as the school's big match cricket big match season, that is currently in progress. Josephians are taking on Peter Rice as their big match got underway today.
The 86th Battle of Saints between St. Peter's College and St. Joseph's College kicked off at the Pisara Oval this morning. St. Joseph's College won the toss and elected to bowl first. Batting first, St. Peter's College scored 224 runs for their first innings. Lahiru Chetaka was the best with the bat for Peter Wright, scoring 64 runs. Ashin Daniel meanwhile bagged 4 wickets for the Joes. At stumps, St. Joseph's College had amassed 191 runs for the loss of 4 wickets. Tomorrow is the last day of the match. Meanwhile, today was the second day of the 114th Battle of North between St. John's College, Jaffna, and Jaffna Central College. Jaffna Central College ended their first innings at 150 runs, while St. John's College, Jaffna scored 291 runs. Jaffna Central College ended the day with a score of 51 runs for the loss of 3 wickets.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.